Hi, everybody, and welcome to Words, Images, and Worlds. Glad to be talking with comics creator, artist, author, and I should have asked Sciver or Sciver? Sciver, I'm betting.
Sciver.
Sciver, okay. Noah Van Sciver, welcome, and thank you so much for jumping on for a morning coffee talk with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Was that coffee that you were drinking just now? Is
Yeah,
that right?
I drink a lot of coffee in the morning, so
I drink a
um,
lot of coffee all the time, all the
yeah,
time.
I do. I make like a full pot, and then I just drink it the entire day, basically until around dinner time, and then I'm done.
Yeah, yeah, same, same. Um, I think sometimes my students sort of go, "Is he okay drinking all that coffee?" I'm like, yeah, it's good, it's good.
Um,
Um, yeah. So thank you for the view into your creative space as well. You were saying this is a digital background behind you, is that right?
yeah, it's not real. It's not real.
It's that whole question of what is real and what is not.
Yeah,
Um, But I have several people that come on and they're like, "We love your bookshelves." I'm like, "Thank you. It's not not real."
you
Yeah,
can see it, just like that little window between the headphones there,
that's
the,
right.
the gloominess of the reality that you live in, that
That's
you
right.
with a fake background.
Yeah, this is the Plato's cave and this is the actual lived reality right
Yep.
here. Yeah, yeah. So folks out there that are listening, they might know you through a couple of different books because you do a lot of different things with the comics medium, which I appreciate. Biography, historical work on the one hand. On the other hand, you've got sort of slice of life, personal exploration, and then it's all literary, but Fanta Bukowski is this really just lovely literary uh Baldian exploration. Yeah, the folks out there probably know you for those things. And I feel like I have a glimpse into your life through One Dirty Tree because I usually ask about like path to cartooning and creating. Um, but it seems like that was always sort of part of the ether for you around growing up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, comic books were just like a part of our household. My father was a is a lifelong comic book reader, still reads comics. But that was just part of it. He would take us all to the comic shop, stuff like that. It was just so normalized for me that I think I didn't really have a choice but to be a cartoonist. I tried other things, but I think I just like naturally had to just give in and do comics.
Yeah, yeah. So what the comics kind of allow you to do in the stories that you want to tell?
Um, well, comics are good for pacing in a way that I don't know if like other writing is. So it's like you get a whole other layer of like uh like with visuals and stuff, like you get like a whole other tool set that you have that a writer doesn't have necessarily. And I think Joe Sacco always talks about like, he if he was just writing his books, he would have to like constantly remind you that it's like rainy, or that in the floor or the ground is muddy and
Hmm.
walking in puddles. But like with a comic, he can just draw that, and you have a whole sense of the environment, what it is. You're in that scene, and it's more effective than if you had to write that and you could just mention it maybe just once. Otherwise, if you just keep like harping on it, it'd be really annoying for a reader.
Hmm. Hmm.
It has different benefits than just regular writing does. But I always think just like pacing does, because I pacing is something I've become sort of obsessed with as I draw more comics. So I'm always thinking like I should slow this down or I should speed this up or what. And those are um, I think concerns of like a cartoonist most of all. Besides maybe like a filmmaker has the same kind of concern, but like with
Yeah.
a comic, you go like, this is too much right now. Let me slow this down with something visual, and then that's when you would insert some kind of like full page illustration or some panels that are just illustration that kind of pull the reader back a bit more, or maybe pull them more into the environment that the story is taking place in, or whatever. Just give them some breathing room, because I think too much dialogue is a can be like a an impediment to the story. Like you don't want to wear people out. Anyway, I don't want to rant, but yeah, I
No,
just
no, you're good. You're good.
very conscientious of like I don't want to like drain a reader. I want them to kind of go along on the story I'm telling very smoothly, and try and pull them into it as much as I can. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and on the creator side too, I imagine you don't want to drain yourself as well because
yeah.
um I mean it's all in the amount of detail that you want to put in, the amount of time that you want to spend and how you want readers to sort of hit that panel.
Hmm. Yeah, that's right. And you're I mean the way I work, I'm like going step by step, like page by page. So I know I know like what the story is going to be and like what the ending is going to be. I know what that goal is,
Hmm.
but I just kind of go page by page and take that journey towards that ending in the same way that the reader would. Where like it's kind of like revealing itself to me as I'm working on it. So yeah, so I'm going, I'm going, man, this is like getting tiring, like writing all this dialogue. I think I need to just take a break and just draw something.
Yeah.
Let me just do a few panels of like a cityscape or something like that, just to kind of give myself and the reader a break. And you don't really know how it's going to read necessarily until it's all done. But I found that that method of kind of trusting your instincts about that sort of story
Hmm.
style um, has always been successful, because I don't think I've done a finished story where I went back and reread it and thought like, darn it, like, this is garbage. What have I done? I'm always going checking back on it and seeing how it's flowing and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's always interesting when you run into comics that are created and it seems like they were really after creating prose with
Yeah,
sort of a picture to go with it. And like 30% of the panel is an image, and then you've got this huge word balloon where it's like the
yeah,
soliloquy.
that's exhausting, and that's like a big no-no. Like some, I think it's Frank Miller or was talking about Will Eisner, gave him some criticism because he had in one of his Daredevil comics a panel where somebody asks a question and the question is answered, and then the person asks another question and that question is answered, and that's a big no-no. Like you shouldn't do that. Like if one question, one answer, one statement, one other statement, like per
Yeah.
panel. Like don't keep the reader in the same panel for too long. Like move them along as much as you can. But you see that a lot in modern comics. Like I see some pages posted recently where it's just a lot of dialogue with just
Hmm.
drawing, and that's like, I mean, that's like whoever did that or whatever. It's like, do you even like this? Like, do you want to be a cartoonist? Like, do you like drawing comics? Why would you? It's just so lazy and kind of mean to the reader to do that kind of thing to them.
Yeah, yeah. You find yourself sort of peeking around the word balloons to take in the art, and it's
Yeah,
really about appreciating both in a way. Um,
yeah, they have to work together,
yeah.
balance each other out and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah. So I mentioned some of the genres that you've worked in as far as you have work on Joseph Smith, Paul Bunyan, you have As a Cartoonist, which is a nice blend of things. You have Fanta Bukowski, One Dirty Tree. Any other titles that I'm missing that you want to make sure
yeah,
to mention?
uh, please don't step on my Jinko jeans.
There you go. There you go.
A graphic book. Um, what else? I mean, I don't know. I feel like I've done so many. Maple Terrace is the ongoing comic that I'm doing now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to sit down and make like a list of like graphic novels, because I did a lot of stuff in the past 15 years. So,
Are there genres, are there things you want to do in the medium or revisit as far as like next steps that you want to challenge yourself or also just comfortable places and enjoyable places that you like to go?
I don't think about that stuff. Like I don't plan it out, but I have been realizing that what I've been doing is doing a lot more work about the medium of comics, and I wasn't planning on doing that. It just happened. So, like the last book I did was called As a Cartoonist, which was just like basically a collection of the comics I've done about like what the cartooning life is like, basically.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the stuff that the last thing I did was for the new issue of Blab that Dark Horse put out, which is I did the story of this comic book series called Crime Does Not Pay, where one of the artists like killed was actually became a murderer. So and then but as I was working on that, it was like really more about like comics history.
Hmm.
And then I'm doing a lot of stuff at my desk now that's also about comics history, I think I'm just kind of like following um, my interests. So I did like a lot of like American history stuff that was interesting to me, and then now I'm doing comics history and also like autobiography. But and then when I get that out of my system, I don't know yet where I'll go after that. It's like a whatever like my comics are evolving along with me as a person and what my interests uh, shift to as I get older. So I'm not sure yet where I'll go after this. I'll be curious to see. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I imagine there's a.
I could
Oh,
just go
sorry.
get a job. I mean, I'm just saying I could just go get a job as a janitor and not do anything after this. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned Maple Terrace. Anything that you want to provide for listeners about that who might not be familiar with it?
Oh yeah. So like I was just saying, like I'm doing a lot more work about comics, and Maple Terrace is about what the like 90s comic book frenzy was like for me and the kids in my neighborhood when I was growing up. So it's about Spawn coming out, particularly Spawn number 5, I think, is the one with the ice cream man serial killer.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was had a big impact, and so it kind of starts there. But it's really about that comic book craze and um, a small town in New Jersey in the '90s when all that stuff was going on. When it just felt like everybody was reading comic books, and they were like the most influential thing within the culture of that little town and my family and stuff like that. So it's a series about that. Um, and Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Yeah, it's
That's
funny. I don't know.
yeah, that's a really interesting. It's an interesting time because I lived through that time too as a comics reader. I started reading in the late 80s, and I remember that was the time when you could find like all of a sudden comics at Walmart and all
Yeah,
of these different like merchandising things, and everything was a collector's item, even
mhm.
if it wasn't. Um,
Yeah. Even if the print run were like millions of copies, those comics that people were like going crazy to buy up because they thought they were going to be worth money. The print runs were enormous. So if you go to a comic shop today and you look at the dollar bins or whatever, you'll find stacks of those comics because they printed way too many. People bought way too many.
yeah, yeah, including the foil and chrome covers and all of those things.
Yeah, yeah. But I have a lot of nostalgia for that stuff, And for you reading comics in the '80s, I mean, that to me, that's the best time for comics. Like the late '80s, I feel like is when the best comics were being made. People like Anna Senti, like these like
Yeah.
writers, and for me, like because the only comics I don't really read a lot of what's coming out now, but I will reread a lot of the older stuff. And for me, like the Batman from the '80s
Hmm.
until like the early to mid '90s, maybe. I love that stuff. I can reread it forever. And Daredevil, same. I mean, I'll reread all those '80s Daredevil comics. I read a lot. Power Pack was big for me when I was a kid, so I'll reread a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just beautiful. I mean, those are the comics that I hold on to.
I try to keep up with the stuff that's published now in like the mainstream, but there's so much. So what I usually do is I'll wind up sort of scrolling through covers and occasionally getting something, but just to even at the cover level, the cover art level, I try to keep up in general. But it's a sprawling universe upon a universe.
And it's expensive. I mean, comic books are like $6, $7 a cover, cover price or something, and it's like a lot of money for a comic that's probably 20 pages long or whatever, and the rest are ads, and it's just
Hmm.
a sliver of a longer story that you're not even really invested in. It's they, you know, they're asking a lot of you.
Yeah,
So
this is
um,
true. This is true. Yeah, but I'm with you. I'm a big rereader of things that I enjoy.
oh yeah, I mean that's amazing. So I was just looking at some Charles Vess Swamp Thing art this morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. Like nobody can do this anymore.
Well, yeah, that fine art that he brings
Yeah.
to it too is just amazing. Or like he did, I think, art for Stardust.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did you ever see this Bernie Wrightson Spider-Man comic he did? It was like a basically like a graphic novel, like a one story, and it's like Spider-Man. There's like on the cover, and it's like a monster. Like
Uh-huh.
Spider-Man goes to like a different dimension or something, and there's some crazy monster. It's amazing. It's like the most beautiful comedy.
Yeah. That's somewhere in my brain. I'm gonna have to research that, look that back up.
Yeah, it's called Spider-Man Hooky, and it's like a graphic novel. It's amazing. Yeah, yeah. Anybody, if this stays in the episode, anybody who is listening to this should go pick that up because it's incredible.
That's the recommended title. Any other titles that you want to recommend before we talk about web spaces and stuff that you've got going on?
From the mainstream comic scene.
Anything, anything. I think, it's the show's really about reading in general. So, mainstream comics certainly, but indie comics by all means.
Comics. Anything by Nick Mandag. He's a Canadian cartoonist that Drawn and Quarterly publishes.
Mhm, mhm.
Really awesome. I'm looking at my shelf here. Nathan Cowdery. He has a book from Fantagraphics. I think he has a new one coming out, but I can't remember the title. You know, of course, like Simon Hanselman, like that whole gang, Alex Graham. Those are all like really amazing cartoonists that are sort of the new generation of indie artists that are working. You know, Josh Pettinger, Nate Garcia. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you haven't heard of them now, you will. You know, in a year or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you mentioned Fantagraphics and Drawn and Quarterly, and neither one of those publishers pay me to say this by any means, but I would say for folks out there that are sort of like, "Hey, I've seen comics, I know the Marvel, I know the DC. If you want to see more and you want to explore the medium a little bit further, you can't go wrong checking out what either one of those publishers shares out. So
Yeah,
recommend that.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, incredible, incredible stuff happening in indie comics right now. You know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
an amazing amount too. Like you're just saying, there's so much going on in mainstream. It's like there's so much happening in indie comics right now. It's like the golden age. I mean, it's stuff that I can't even catch it all. Like I find stuff on at a comic shop later on that came out a couple of years ago, and I'm like, what? Like this is like right up my alley. How did I didn't even know about this? Because it's just
Hmm.
stuff is just coming out so fast, and you have to catch it all. You know, it's really hard.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good time for that, and I'm hoping the surge continues. May the surge continue.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so last official question, and then we can touch on anything that you'd like to that we haven't, and that is, I always like to ask about current ongoing things, web spaces, upcoming events, go-to places for you like conventions and such. Anything like that that you want to share with listeners that want to connect more.
Well, so look, we were talking about Maple Terrace. That's a comic book series that's coming out um, now from Uncivilized Books. So I think issue 2 is about to come out, and I would like it if anybody listening to this will would pick up that comic from their local comic shop. I know Diamond is distributing it, so if you go to your comic shop, ask them to stock it, or you can just go and get it online. It's going to be 3 issues, um, and I think it's been pretty successful. Like I've gotten a lot of response from it, a lot of emails, and I'm pretty happy with the way it's gone. I'm finishing up the 3rd issue now, so like it's not going to be late. Yeah, it's going to come out when it's supposed to come out. Uh, what else am I working on? I don't know if I'm working on anything I can really talk about, but I do have a lot of
Uh,
stuff on my desk and like another Fantagraphics book that I'm in the middle of and stuff. So
nice.
you just have to stay tuned for that info.
I can see the work and the planning back there, the
A lot.
mysterious pages.
My wife is out of town for the weekend, so I've just been up like late last night, just working as much as I can, you know. And there's just so much. I'm spinning like three different plates, and that's how I like it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and thanks for getting up early and talking with me
No way,
after a late night.
I get up at 5:30 no matter what. Even
Oh,
if
wow.
it's late, I stay up. So like I was up. To me, midnight is super late, but I
Hmm.
was up at midnight. You know, that's when I was like, okay, I need to go to bed. I never do that. But then I woke up at 5:30 because my brain is just trained to wake up at 5:30 because I have a little baby, you know. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I was up really early. So I still got up early. I've already gone for like a walk and had coffee and everything like that. So yeah, this is like noontime for anybody else.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah. Well, anything that we've missed in the interview that you want to make sure to talk about before we wrap up?
I don't think so, man. It was just nice talking to you. I appreciate
Yeah,
the time.
great talking to you, and glad to share about your work. I recommend it for people out there that are listening. And again, if you're a person that's sort of like, hey, I've seen the Marvel, I've seen the DC, I've seen the things, like there's a lot to explore in comics. And I appreciate what you bring to the medium.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, glad to talk with you anytime, and I will let you get back to the pot of coffee that you're currently working on.
All right, man. Have a good day.
You too.